record is an amazing source of information about the history of life on our planet, stretching back thousands of millions of years. But not only does the fossil record tell us about which plants and animals lived when, it tells us about where they lived, what their environment was like. In Ireland today, animals live in lots of different environments or habitats in water: rivers, lakes, ponds, marshes, and of course the sea. Many of these environments also existed in Ireland in the past, and we can learn about them by studying layers of sedimentary rock of different ages. Most of Ireland's rocks were laid down under the sea, and so our most common fossils are of marine creatures. We can find traces of this ancient marine life in limestone rocks such as these. And by studying these rocks and the fossils contained within them, we can build a picture of what the ancient marine realm actually looked like. But it didn't always look the same as today. So let's take a look at some of these strange ancient marine fossils. These rocks near Dingle in County Kerry date from the Silurian period, about 450 million years ago. The common types of fossils here are corals, crinoids, brachiopods, trilobites, and gastropods. We also see trace fossils, tiny burrows called chondrites, made by small worms as they tunneled through the soft sediment on the seafloor. These creatures all lived in a warm, shallow sea, when Ireland was located in the tropics about 25 degrees south of the equator. However, this was quite a stressful environment. The climate was hot and dry, and there was lots of volcanic activity, producing lavas and pyroclastic flows. So these ancient creatures were actually living in pretty harsh conditions in the shadow of a range of volcanoes. We can learn more about Ireland's ancient marine life by looking at younger rocks. And here to tell us about some of these younger fossils is Dr. Eamon Doyle.
The limestone rocks here in the Burren, County Clare are Carboniferous in age. They're over 330 million years old. The common type of fossils we have here are crinoids, corals, gastropods and brachiopods. So similar types of fossils that we find in the Silurian. But there are important differences. The fossils here are much more abundant in Carboniferous. There are different species here, and also some of them are a lot larger than their Silurian ancestors. The fossils that we find here in the Burren lived in a shallow tropical sea, just like the Bahamas today, when Ireland was 6,000 kilometres further south, down near the equator. And we see signs of storms in that sea. Some of the corals are flipped over, and a lot of the crinoids are broken up into little bits and pieces on the seafloor. This shallow marine environment, a carbonate platform, covered the whole country during the Carboniferous. So we find similar rocks and fossils in Hookhead, County Wexford, in Galway, in Sligo, and over as far as Dublin. In the east of the country, we see carbonate reefs called mud mounds. These are made up of broken up fragments of crinoids and bryozoa, which would have lived on top. The limestones of the Burren are overlain by younger rocks, including these black shales. This represents a change from the shallow water limestones to a deeper water, quieter environment where there's lower levels of oxygen. So a lot of the fossils we find here would have been swimming in the sea, but when they went down to the sea floor, they would have died because of lack of oxygen. And here we see these gonatites. They've been preserved in these layers at the bottom of the sea floor ever since. The black shales are overlain by the sandstones and siltstones of the cliffs of Moher, and there's lots of fossils in those rocks. But these squiggly lines here on this sandstone from the Scanner, County Clare, these are made by burrowing organisms, and the trace fossils that these are called Samignites. And these were made by the animal burrowing through the sediment on the sea floor of an ancient delta around 320 million years ago.
Moving forwards through geological time, we can also find marine rocks along the coast of County Antrim. But here, the rocks and the fossils we find are from the Jurassic and Triassic periods. The most common fossils we can find here are ammonites and bivalves, such as the devil's toenail. We can also find belemnites and sea urchins, and there are even rare giant marine reptiles and dinosaurs. These rocks tell us about different environments, from shallow to deep oceans, and they even tell us about a catastrophic drop in oxygen levels. This rock here is called a green sand because it contains the green mineral glauconite, and glauconite can only form when there is no oxygen present. So it tells us this rock formed when the oceans lacked oxygen. It's a signal for a global mass extinction that killed off almost all marine life. So together, these three fossil sites give us a picture of what life was like under the seas at three very different periods in Earth's history. We have a violent volcanic island in the middle of a tectonic collision zone. We have a warm tropical reef battered by storms. And finally, we have an ancient ecosystem suffering with catastrophic changes in oxygen levels. Here at Ireland's Fossil Heritage, we have developed an interactive map that shows you where you can go to find marine fossils in the outdoors and in the building stones of our towns and cities. You don't need any equipment to find fossils, so what are you waiting for? There are thousands of fossils out there waiting to be discovered. If you do find fossils and you have questions about them, feel free to get in touch, send us an email or contact us on social media. And remember, please leave any fossils you find behind for the next person to discover and enjoy.